Last month, when a female coworker got drunk and someone took advantage of her, you scolded her for not having boundaries. Negotiating a deal, and she could still let herself be touched. Remember, Minister, Wong drank an entire bottle of Lafite last year to secure a contract and ended up with a perforated stomach, and you still refuse to approve even one extra sick day. After the discussion ended, my wife called a taxi for the male assistant. I sneered on the spot. If you're so worried, why don't you drive him yourself? The divorce agreement has already been sent to you. After you sign it, you can go book a room while you're still drunk. My wife's expression turned pitch black. Victor, there should be a limit to speaking without thinking. He only got drunk because he was negotiating a partnership for the company. What's wrong with me calling a taxi for him? So just because you ordered a taxi for him, you want to divorce me? Are you insane? My gaze turned icy. Yes. Chapter 1 month ago, I made an appointment in advance to meet Manager Chan, who had just returned to the country today. I had prepared everything for the collaboration, even printed the contract, just waiting for signatures. But 10 minutes ago, my wife Helen showed up uninvited, and even brought along Edward, a half-baked rookie assistant who just joined the company. The moment Edward opened his mouth, he started blasting fluent English, completely offending Manager Chan, who always traveled with an interpreter and was basically an old-school executive unfamiliar with foreign languages. I politely explained that although Manager Chan's business was mostly overseas, his English was not very good, and asked Edward to speak Chinese. Unexpectedly, Helen immediately frowned. Are you worried Edward will outshine you? Manager Chan lived abroad for years. How could his English be bad? She assumed that anyone who lived abroad must be fluent. She never considered that when someone is outstanding enough, they don't need to deliberately learn foreign languages. Plenty of excellent graduate students and PhDs are willing to serve as Manager Chan's interpreters, and even many foreigners learn Chinese just to work with him. Manager Chan could tell I was trying to help him save face, but he didn't expect Helen and Edward to continue acting however they pleased, still blasting English nonstop. Manager Chan's face instantly went cold. When the cooperation was on the verge of collapsing, I, despite being allergic to alcohol, stood up and down 3 cups as self-punishment to apologize, and only then did we secure the contract. As long as this contract was signed, Helen's dream of breaking into the overseas market could finally come true. Edward looked pitifully at Helen and whispered, "It's all my fault for not looking into the situation beforehand. I almost messed up the deal." Helen patted Edward's thigh under the table. "How is this your fault? You weren't responsible for this project before." Victor just didn't explain it clearly. The alcohol was burning my stomach painfully, but Helen's words beside me hurt even more. After barely managing to send Manager Chan off, I was hoping Helen could take me to the hospital for gastric lavage. When I looked up, I saw that Edward had gotten drunk at some point, and Helen was intimately supporting him. The ambiguous atmosphere between them was obvious. If I hadn't been there, they might have already kissed. Before Helen and Edward could get into the taxi together, I pulled her back. "If you dare go, we're getting divorced." Helen frowned and snapped Victor, "Are you insane? If you had explained everything clearly beforehand, how would Edward have made a mistake and drunk himself into misery? He drank because he wanted to help you negotiate the collaboration. And I can't even call a taxi to make sure he gets home safely." I let out a cold laugh and released her hand. "So I'd love to know, since when did the famously iron-faced, emotionless President Lin become such a compassionate saint?" My sarcastic words made Helen Lin's face twist with embarrassment. She slapped me hard across the face. Victor, my cheek burned, painfully warning me it was time to cut my losses. Clutching my violently aching stomach, I gritted my teeth and threw out one final sentence, "Let's get a divorce." Chapter 2. Helen's eyes widened, full of shock and confusion, but I had no energy to care about her dazed expression. Just as I was about to use my phone to call a designated driver, the drunken Edward suddenly rushed over. My phone fell to ground and was crushed under his foot. He pointed at me in grievance and cursed loudly. "Do you even count as a man, you pre-boy freeloader? You only became successful because of Helen. What are you acting so arrogant for? It's bad enough you don't give Helen any respect in front of the company's shareholders, but today you even dared leave her hanging in front of Manager Chan. Do you think I'm upset because I didn't manage to impress Manager Chan? I'm upset because Helen deserves better. She's every bit as capable as you, but just. Because she's a woman, she struggles at every step in the company. As her husband, you don't help her. You even team up with outsiders to bully her. Everyone knows Helen hired me targeting me is the same as targeting her listening to Edward's ridiculous self-righteous ranting. I almost laughed out loud. But Helen was utterly moved, crying her eyes out. Watching her tears fall, I suddenly felt that all my years of effort were nothing but a joke. Yes, Helen did start the company with 100,000 yuan. But within 2 months, mismanagement brought the company to the brink of bankruptcy. Because I loved her, I resigned from my position as president of a top-tier tech company. I came to help her run the business, so she could realize her dream of becoming a strong, admired career woman. But Helen had no business acumen. Every time the company finally stabilized, her reckless decisions would drag it back to the edge of collapse. After several incidents, the shareholders completely lost trust in her as CEO. It wasn't that I refused to give her chances. She simply couldn't hold on to them. For all these years, just because she once said she wanted to be a woman, everyone admired. I fought tooth and nail to bring in investments and partnerships. I even stepped into the background, giving her all the credit and praise. And yet the reward for my effort was Edward calling me a pretty boy freeloader and a social climber. Enduring the pain in my stomach, I truly had no patience to argue with them. Say whatever you want. Give me back my phone. I bent down to pick up the phone, but Helen suddenly exploded and kicked the already broken phone away. The kick hit my fingers, sending a sharp pain through them, but she was too busy venting to care. You're not talking back. Does that mean Edward was right? This company is clearly mine, yet those old geezers only listen to you just because I'm a woman. And because Edward is someone I hired, you just can't stand the sight of him. She grabbed my arm angrily, trying to force a confrontation, completely ignoring how pale I looked. I shook Helen off with one motion. She fell to the ground with a thud, staring at me in disbelief. Victor, you actually dare lay a hand on me? Edward hurriedly supported Helen and turned to accuse me. Victor, you've gone too far. You actually hit your wife. People around us began gathering, casting disdainful looks my way. Helen pointed at me furiously. Victor, this isn't over. She picked up her phone and sent a voice message to HR effective immediately. Victor is demoted to an ordinary employee responsible for cleaning the break room. Looking at the furious Helen, I felt no emotion whatsoever. Whatever. Ignoring the pointing fingers and insults around me, I flagged down a taxi and headed to the hospital. Even though the phone was black-screened, it kept vibrating nonstop. I answered it by memory. The butler's anxious voice came through. Miss brought a man home, and he smashed all your treasured luxury car models. She said you bought them with her money and insisted on teaching you a lesson. What should we do? Chapter 3. Helen snatched the phone away. That old geezer actually dared to complain. With a loud thud, the butler let out a pain cry. Victor, all these years you've been flaunting your success outside, thanks to my company, and spending money freely at home. Today I'll make sure you learn the consequences of angering me. Everything I ever gave you. I'm taking it all back. Her voice was harsh and sharp as she stomped on the butler's leg. My heart tightened immediately. The butler had taken care of me since I was a child. He had insisted on postponing retirement and came all the way from the old estate just to look after me. Helen, smash whatever you want, but leave him alone. He's old. Edward standing beside her added fuel to fire. Helen, I've seen this old fossil speak badly about you to Victor many times. The reason your marriage is getting worse has everything to do with him. Are you really going to let him get away with it? It's because of this old bastard telling Victor there's something going on between us, that he's been targeting me. Edward spoke pitifully. There's nothing between us at all. I'm just a small employee. Being slandered is one thing, but you're the face of the company. If your reputation is damaged, that would be a huge problem. Helen's eyes darkened. Victor, don't tell me you're going to fight with me over an outsider. This old man never tells the truth. He's always tattling to you. I've long hated the sight of him. To protect our marriage, you don't mind if I take a few measures, right? Helen, don't you dare. What's there for me not to dare someone beat this old man and throw him out? I'll cover the medical bills. Thud, thud, thud. The sound of fists hitting flesh came through the phone. I was about to reveal my true identity, but the phone suddenly died. My stomach churned violently. Enduring the pain, I shoved my diamond watch into the driver's hand. Please make a phone call for me. Tell them he admits his mistake and agrees to the engagement. Send someone immediately. I finished reciting the phone number and then passed out from the pain. The taxi driver stepped hard on the accelerator, rushing me to the hospital while dialing the number. When I woke up, I saw the butler, both legs wrapped in bandages, looking at me anxiously. "Young master, thank goodness you're awake. The master's already on his way. He'll arrive in half an hour." He wiped his tears, voice trembling. "You're allergic to alcohol. How could you drink? Did someone force you?" Seeing his worry, my heart softened. "I drank on my own." The moment I said that, the hospital room door was kicked open violently. Helen walked in looking extremely impatient. Edward's eyes flickered, then he stirred things up. "President, really? You knew you were allergic to alcohol. If you told me, I could have drunk those 3 glasses for you." Helen spoke with disgust. "I don't care if you were putting on a show or couldn't bear to let Edward take the credit. This was your choice. Don't expect me to feel sorry for you. 10 years ago, when I was only 15, I met Manager Chan at one of my father's banquets. I knew Manager Chan was extremely traditional and valued drinking culture. Given the situation at the time, only if the host stood up and drank 3 cups as an apology could the contract be signed. But Helen thought I was playing the victim. Her gaze shifted to the butler, her look even more disdainful. "What is he doing here? Didn't I tell him to get out of Haichin?" My voice turned icy. "I'm the one who pays the butler. You have no right to kick him out." Helen's expression twisted. She gritted her teeth. "Victor I, let go of your mistakes for the sake of our marriage. I left all the company's shareholders behind to come see you, yet you embarrass me because of this decrepit old man." Noticing the obvious kiss marks on Helen's neck, my smirk deepened. "He's far more important to me than you are." Helen's face darkened completely. Victor Edwards suddenly dropped to his knees in front of me, kowtowing wildly. "President, I overestimated myself. I should never have dreamed of staying in the company. I'll resign immediately. Please don't fight with Helen anymore. I really know I was wrong." Helen reached out to pull him up, and in the process his shirt was tugged open, revealing large patches of bruises. Helen stared in disbelief. "No wonder you didn't want to take your clothes off last night. So it was because you were hurt?" Edward trembled as he explained to me, "I slipped and fell last night. Helen only wanted me to take off my shirt so she could apply medicine. Nothing happened between us. Please don't misunderstand." Helen turned to glare at me angrily. "So you injured Edward, didn't you, chapter?" For I hadn't even answered when Edward panicked and grabbed Helen. "Helen, it really has nothing to do with the president. I hurt myself. Please don't ask anymore. Maybe the president just wanted to teach me a lesson." That kind of guilty explanation instantly cemented my crime in Helen's mind. I simply watched them perform without the slightest ripple in my emotions. Helen clenched her hands into fists, then picked up a cup of water and splashed it onto my face. "Victor, I'll get to the bottom of Edward's injuries. If it really has anything to do with you, don't blame me for being ruthless." With that, she hurried off with Edward to get his wounds treated. The butler looked at their departing figures, then turned back to me anxiously. "Young master, are you really letting Helen leave like this?" He feared I would be heartbroken after giving so selflessly for so many years. I shook my head calmly. When I said I wanted a divorce, I meant it. I was just too naive before. Clap, clap, clap. Several crisp claps echoed. My father entered with over a dozen bodyguards looking at me with satisfaction. "Knowing when to admit mistakes and when to cut your losses. That's the right thing." He sighed helplessly. 3 years ago, I told you to accept an arranged marriage so you could better inherit the family business, but you ran away from home out of spite. The Chan girl has been waiting for you all this time. Since you're finally willing to accept the engagement, leave the divorce arrangements to me. Professional lawyers will handle everything." Seeing the butler's injuries, I added, "Everything that belongs to me, every single part, must be returned." My father flashed me a knowing smile and placed a shareholding contract in front of me. "This is a gift to you personally. Tomorrow, attend the 100-year anniversary press conference as my son. It's time for the heir of the Wu family to show himself." When Helen took Edward to get treated, they happened to see Manager Chan and his daughter entering through the hospital's main doors. "Isn't that Manager Chan?" The two hurried forward to greet him, but his bodyguard shoved them aside. Edward called out anxiously, "Manager Chan, I'm Edward. We had dinner together last night. Do you remember me?" Manager Chan turned around, and upon seeing the two of them, his expression became even more disdainful. "Idiots." He said nothing else and walked off with his daughter and bodyguards. Helen and Edward stood frozen, utterly humiliated. Suddenly, Edward muttered nervously, Why would Manager Chan suddenly come to the hospital? Did Victor say something if the deal falls apart it's over? We're supposed to attend the 100-year anniversary event hosted by the Wu family tomorrow. We barely managed to get tickets. If Manager Chan says anything bad about you to the Wu family, it'll be a disaster. Helen instantly exploded with anger. She grabbed her phone and posted an announcement in the company's internal group effective immediately. Victor Wu is stripped of all positions due to poor personal conduct and will clean the company building's bathrooms for 6 months. Countless shareholders and employees messaged me in shock, saying if I left the company, they'd follow me. I told them to wait for further notice, sneering to myself at how foolish Helen could be. I'd worked tirelessly for the company all these years, and she wanted to discard me and make me scrub toilets without worrying about what the employees would think. That night I received a photo. In a luxury hotel room, 2 people leaned against each other intimately. Several used peaches were scattered across the floor. On the back of the photo was written, "There's no place for you beside her anymore." My fist tightened. Since Edward dared to challenge me, he shouldn't blame me for showing no mercy. On the day of the 100-year anniversary press conference, elites from all industries stood below the stage applauding the ribbon-cutting ceremony. Helen and Edward were assigned to the furthest corner, forced to crane their necks to see anything. When Helen finally saw the man being escorted to the very center of the stage, treated like royalty, she nearly lost her balance. What is he doing there? I stood in the center calmly, accepting everyone's admiration. Helen's phone vibrated in her pocket. She answered it only to hear furious shouting from the other end. "Helen Lin, you idiot. You completely offended Manager Chan. The partnership is ruined. And he's even ordered the total blacklist of Lin Corporation. What did you do?" Chapter 5. Helen's voice was frantic. "How is that possible, Dad? The contract is already signed. Manager Chan would never blacklist Lin Corporation." Cold sweat appeared on Edward's forehead. He suddenly pointed toward the stage. Helen looked under the flashing spotlights. Manager Chan walked up to me, holding his daughter's hand. "It's been 10 years since we last met. I didn't even recognize you, kid. Why didn't you call me Uncle Chan the other day when we met after your engagement? Today, you'd better treat my daughter well." A deafening buzz filled Helen's head. She felt as if her hearing vanished. What did he mean? Engagement today, people nearby whispered excitedly. I heard long ago that the heir of the Wu family from City A was supposed to get engaged to the Chan family's heiress, but got delayed for 3 whole years. The Wu family heir had never appeared in public. I thought he was some incompetent rich kid. But seeing him today, he's eloquent, handsome, and had already proven his ability years ago when he was announced as the successor. Amazing. And Miss Chan isn't bad, either. The only daughter of family worth billions. A powerful alliance indeed. Helen and Edward trembled uncontrollably, their shock almost taking physical form. Their stares were so intense that even I found them hard to ignore. Emma looked at me shyly, her cheeks slightly flushed. Just as I was about to take her hand, Helen suddenly shouted, "No, you can't get engaged." Everyone turned to stare at Helen in disbelief. Who is she? Looks like the CEO of Lin Corporation. She's worth a few tens of millions, but how did someone like that get in here? What right does she have to shout in a place like this, overestimating herself? The ridicule around her made Helen's face burn with humiliation, but when she looked up at me on stage, her confidence suddenly returned. Edward grabbed her hand. "Helen, don't go." He had finally latched onto Helen. There was no way he'd watch her walk away now. Helen frowned impatiently and shook him off. "You know what kind of event this is. We'll talk when I get back." With that, she walked confidently toward me, even giving Emma a disdainful glance. Her tone was arrogant. "Victor, why didn't you tell me you were the Wu family heir? Forget it. I won't hold your recent mistakes against you. I'll give you one last chance. Refuse the engagement right now, or don't blame me for cutting ties with you completely." Helen looked proudly at Emma, and the thought of the Wu family becoming her backing inflated her ego to the point she didn't even take Manager Chan seriously. "Manager Chan, you're just an old-fashioned man who can't even speak English. Trying to marry off your daughter to curry favor with the Wu family. Know your place." Manager Chan's face instantly darkened. "Helen, what did you say?" Every guest and media reporter on site felt their hearts jump to their throats. Manager Chan is worth billions and has an incredible network. Does Helen have a death wish talking to him like that? What if the Wu heir really chooses Helen, then who wins or loses is hard to say. I heard Helen and Victor are married. They registered in secret. Victor disappeared for 3 years. Because he was with her, hearing the murmurs, Helen's pride nearly overflowed. She arrogantly pushed Emma aside. Young girls nowadays. Of all things you choose to be a homewrecker. Don't you know people who destroy relationships get struck by lightning? Emma's sensitive and soft-natured turned red-eyed immediately. I frowned and pulled Emma behind me, voice cold. Helen, I suggest you stop. Seeing me protect Emma was the final trigger. Helen snapped, screaming hysterically. I haven't even confronted you about hiding your identity and deceiving me for 3 years. And now you defend another woman in front of me. Are you really planning to get engaged to her? Victor, have you forgotten how you used to follow behind me like a dog slap? Emma, who had never fought with anyone, revealed her sharpness for the first time. Her eyes were firm. How dare you talk to Victor like that? Helen lunged at Emma. What are you? Who gave you the right to scream in front of me? I pulled Helen away forcefully. She lost her balance and fell to the ground. My voice was icy enough to freeze the air. She's my fiancée. That alone gives her every right. The one who has no right to shout here is you. I took Emma's hand and motioned for the bodyguards to remove this unruly woman. Meeting my icy gaze, at last Helen panicked. For the first time ever, she backed down. Her eyes red as she pleaded, Victor, I'm the one you love. You're just doing this to make me jealous, right? Chapter 6. I looked coldly at the tear-streaked Helen, feeling no pity whatsoever. Seeing me remain silent, Helen thought she still had a chance. She stood up and grabbed my hand, promising, I know you're only throwing a tantrum because you're jealous of Edward. As long as you announce that you have nothing to do with Emma, then officially acknowledge our relationship and transfer half of the Wu family shares to my name, I'm willing to fire Edward. Edward's mouth fell open. He grabbed Helen, unwillingly. Helen, didn't you say that once Victor was out of the picture you'd make me the president? How can you fire me? Helen slapped Edward across the face. Shut up, this isn't your place to talk. You're just a poor scholarship kid someone sponsored. If I hadn't felt sorry for you, someone with your background would have never gotten into my company. You strutted around the company just because I favored you. Fine. But now my husband, Victor, is extremely bothered by your existence. So get out now. I watched Helen's performance with mocking amusement. If she had shown the same unwavering loyalty toward Edward as before, I might have respected her. Just a little. But she discarded Edward without hesitation. Just how much of her affection was ever real? I frowned and pulled my hand away, then took a wet wipe and wiped my skin in disgust. You worthy, that single word, worthy, hit Helen like a hammer. She looked at me in disbelief, her lips trembling, unable to speak. I flicked the used wipe to the floor. Right now, you're not even worth this used tissue. You think I'd give up my engagement with the Chan family for you? You think your face carries that much value? I took Emma's hand. Emma, I'm determined to marry you. Helen screamed hysterically, losing control. Victor, don't forget. You're my husband. She suddenly pulled out a marriage certificate and held it up for everyone to see. Would the dignified heiress of the Chan family knowingly marry a man who already has a wife? A gasp swept through the entire hall. Victor and Helen are married, but the Wu family heir never announced any marriage. What's going on having 2 wives is illegal. Emma's face turned pale. She instinctively tried to pull her hand back. I tightened my grip on her hand and gave Helen not even a shred of dignity. Who said that marriage certificate is real? I let out a bitter laugh. 3 years ago, I refused the arranged marriage and fled the capital. That's when I met you. We fell in love over time, supported each other. But back then, registering a marriage required a household registration booklet. We didn't have it, and you said sincerity mattered more than 2 pieces of paper. You said that even without a certificate, you were willing to be my wife for life. For that promise, I threw myself into your little 10,000 yuan startup. Even though I'm allergic to alcohol, I never miss a single business drinking session. You know how many gastric lavages I went through, how many permanent health problems I developed. But a few months ago, you brought home a pretty boy freeloader. Not only did you let him climb over my head, but you let him steal my clients, my contracts, and even demoted me to a janitor to clean toilets. The day before yesterday was our 3rd wedding anniversary. Last year, the law changed. No more household registration booklet needed for marriage. I suggested we finally register, but you said the company was still young. The overseas market not yet developed, and you'd wait until everything was in place before thinking about a lifelong commitment. For that promise, I pushed myself to the limit, exhausted every connection, and begged Manager Chan for help. And what were you doing? You were fussing over Edward being drunk with no one to send him home. Meanwhile, you left me, someone allergic to alcohol, behind and forgot all about the promise to marry me. Do you know that I nearly died in the hospital? Saying all of this, my whole body trembled, not out of heartache, but because I felt ashamed for myself. I had tortured myself to this extent for a woman like her. A small, warm hand clasped mine. Sincerity isn't your mistake. It's Helen who didn't know how to cherish it. Helen, crying, tried to grab my hand, but I avoided her immediately. Tears streamed down her face. I never betrayed you. I was wrong. I shouldn't have ignored you, shouldn't have embarrassed you. But I really never betrayed you. Nothing ever happened between Edward and me. Helen grabbed Edward harshly. Hurry up and explain to Victor. We clearly didn't do anything. Edward looked aggrieved, unwilling to speak. Helen slapped him hard. What are you stuttering for? Explain. Weren't you terrified Victor would misunderstand us? Why aren't you talking now? I look at them coldly, mocking. Edward is afraid I won't misunderstand you too. I threw down the photo Edward sent anonymously. You know exactly what happened. Helen's entire body jolted when she saw the photo. Emma cast me a pained glance, then shoved Helen aside. Get lost, don't be an eyesore. Bodyguard stepped forward and dragged Helen, and Edward out, dumping them at the door. People who once knew them avoided eye contact, unwilling to acknowledge ever being connected with them. Helen pushed Edward away and spent the entire night crouching outside in the cold wind. But I never went to her. Half a year later, at my wedding with Emma, Helen suddenly showed up with her father in front of everyone. Every guest phone buzzed at the same time. City A's Wu family air toys with women cheats and ruins lives. He played the victim and caused others to go bankrupt. Helen's father slammed into Champagne Tower, sending glasses crashing everywhere. He roared at the crowd. Victor Wu is a cheating scumbag. He toyed with my daughter, then turned around and chose to marry the Chan family heiress. And he even pushed our Lin Corporation into bankruptcy. Chapter 7. The wedding was grand, broadcast live across the globe. Everyone stared at them in shock, and the internet instantly exploded. Countless people began attacking me and Emma online. Even hashtags like a slut and a dog deserve each other shot up the trending list. Emma looked at me with worry, but I reassured her gently. I'll handle it. Helen no longer had her former arrogance. Her gaze toward me was filled with regret and despair. Her father, spittle flying everywhere, shouted dramatically into the camera, Victor is a complete scumbag. 3 years ago, he claimed he couldn't get a household registration booklet because he ran away from home. So he tricked my daughter into living with him as husband and wife for 3 whole years. During those 3 years, my daughter not only took care of him, but even handed over our entire company to him to manage. But just because she ordered a taxi for an assistant who got drunk during a business dinner, Victor demanded a divorce, and he emptied all of Lin Corporation's assets. My daughter's youth, 3 precious years, was destroyed by Victor, and yet he marries another woman today. Helen's father dragged Helen forward aggressively. You absolutely cannot toy with my daughter like this for the rest of your life. She will be your only wife, and the Wu family will have only one mistress. And that is her. Many people were disgusted by Helen's father's shamelessness, while some cast suspicious glances in my direction. I calmly projected the video from the private dining room. In front of both me and Manager Chan, they dared to touch each other under the table. Who knows what they did in private? Helen's face turned completely pale, unable to form a single explanation. Immediately after, I displayed Edward's hundreds of provocative messages and photos. These photos, hugging, kissing, are all unedited. If any professional want to verify them, I'll pay $1 million per image. As for your Lin Corporation, when it came into my hands, it had already filed for bankruptcy protection. There were exactly 3,000 yuan left in the account. Half a year ago, I only withdrew the salary owed to me for 3 years. If the company collapsed after that, it's because you mismanaged it. Helen lacked business sense. Her father was even worse, a complete fool. It would have been shocking if the company didn't collapse. Helen's father's face turned dark, but he still insisted shamelessly. What successful man doesn't have flings outside of men can keep mistresses? Why can't women keep a pretty boy freeloader as husband and wife? Shouldn't you tolerate each other? He was born a rough, unreasonable man. Always arguing, never listening, never logical. After seeing the evidence, the crowd completely lost interest in them. Some even mocked openly hurry and leave. Standing here just makes people sick. Just as Helen, unable to endure the humiliation, tried to drag her father away, I spoke. Wait. Helen's heart pounded wildly. Tears welled up in her eyes as she looked at me with hope. Victor, do you still care about me? I've missed you these past months. She stepped toward me, voice choked. But I simply replied cold and emotionless, Miss Helen, you and your father disrupted my wedding and caused property damage. I'll have my assistant prepare an itemized bill. Please pay promptly or I'll file a lawsuit. Helen stared at me, face as white as paper. She couldn't understand how the man who once charged in the battle for her, who once gave up everything for her, could now be so utterly cold. My father threw Edward onto the ground in front of everyone, his face cold. No cap. Blink and you'd miss it. The crowd gasped when they saw Edward. Several fingers severed his entire body in a pitiful state. Man, it was wild. You thought that sending Edward overseas buying internet trolls to fabricate scandals and manipulating public opinion would let you marry my son. Seriously? The moment Edward saw Helen and her father, he trembled violently and kowtowed like a madman. Dude, I was wrong. I shouldn't have seduced Helen. I shouldn't have tried to destroy your relationship with Victor. My bad. For real. My father kicked him hard. I dragged you back from overseas not so you could babble nonsense. Hurry and tell the whole truth. Come on now. Helen's father panicked and tried to kick Edward, but the bodyguards, already prepared, pinned him down easy. Helen was also restrained, her mouth covered. Facing the cameras, I said, I can tolerate slander against me, but I will never accept anyone hurting my family. Period. So this rumor, I will clear completely. Bet. I held Emma's hand tightly. For the sake of my wife, you all deserve to know the truth. Listen up. Edward stared into the camera and spoke word by word. I only graduated from middle school. I was working as a male escort. Yeah. One day I saw Helen online, this rising female entrepreneur. Kinda big deal. Later I overheard her and her best friend complaining that Victor controlled the company. So I approached her on purpose, fanning the flames and pushing her against Victor, low-key sneaky. But I swear I only said a few things casually. Helen was the one who instantly promised to make me the CEO. No joke. She even said she'd make Victor clean the toilets. Savage. She was easier to manipulate than any of my former clients. Just a few sweet words, and she believed everything too easy. So I deluded myself into thinking I could replace Victor. Crazy, right? I just didn't expect Victor wasn't an ordinary man. He shuddered when he looked at me, then continued, I originally just wanted some money and planned to leave the city. Simple plan. But Helen blamed me for ruining things with Victor. She tortured me in every possible way. Messed up. She even followed her father's instructions and sent me to northern Myanmar. Brutal. Edward's voice filled with hatred. Helen is a crazy lunatic. For real. She was the one who claimed she loved me and wanted me to be CEO. Then she suddenly turned on me for no reason, and now I'm like this. Look at me. Regret consumed Edward. He wished he had never met her. Straight up. At that moment, the police walked in and immediately handcuffed Helen and her father. Done deal. You are suspected of illegal detention and human trafficking. The evidence is solid. You will now come with us. No escape. Helen struggled as she was taken away, still trying to look back at me. Last chance. But I didn't spare her a single glance, cold. In front of the cameras, I played the victim a bit. Our company stock price instantly jumped 2 points. Big win. Many netizens sympathized with Emma and me and flooded to purchase products from both our families. Love that. Emma, seeing the rising stock numbers, happily wrapped her arms around me. Cute. Husband, you're so smart. Facts. With our alliance, we're only going to get stronger. No stopping us. Looking at the heart-shaped birthmark on the back of her neck, I responded gently. So it was you who saved me in the swimming pool 10 years ago. Wow.